Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to wherever you are watching or listening from. My name is Jamie Robinson, and welcome to episode 259 of the Wakefield Trinity Heritage Podcast, proudly sponsored by the New Inn Pub and Restaurant at Warrington in Wakefield. And this is Trinity BACKCHAT once again as we dive into the 27-16 away loss over at Warrington in Super League Round 3. But before we do, let me introduce my co-host, my dad, Lee Robinson. How are we doing, Dad?
Okay, nice sunny morning, isn't it? Yeah, it was a defeat. I went over yesterday. Yeah, we were going to go together when you were a bit under the weather, so I went over. Don't like missing many games. Yeah, we lost. Warrington are a good side, aren't they? Whether it's their year, I've no idea, but we put up a good fight. Few errors, few missed tackles, as most games are. But you came away thinking we're getting better, aren't we? We're doing all right, so our time will come.
Yeah, it was slightly annoying. I had to pull out last minute. I try and get to as many games as I can with you. You go to every single one. Ended up getting a bit of a stomach bug, so I actually watched it from home. But it was quite good because we had 2 points of different views. Really, you had it from the game, and I had it on BBC. So it was quite good to bounce ideas off from that regard. But yeah, I'll just go through kind of the baseline stats initially. Warrington 27, Wakefield Trinity 16. Our try scorers: Max Jowett, Jaden Myers, and Ollie Pratt. The assists: Jake Truman got 2 assists, Jack Sinfield got another assist. Our goal kickers: Max Jowett got 2 out of 3, and Jack Sinfield got 0 out of 1. Our Ken Rolling points went to 1 point Jazz Tavanga, 2 points Jack Sinfield, and 3 points Jake Truman. We'll talk through our breakdown of that in a minute. We were toing and froing between even Caius getting a one, Corey Hall, Max Jowett as well getting in there with the tries and 2 goal kicks. But we did decide on a Truman, Sinfield, and Tavanga split there. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Looking at the stats, Dad, kind of we've had the stats through from Millsy, the detailed stats that we do get. Pretty much all of the major stats Warrington came out on top on, and you'd expect that really. You know, you're looking at it came out as a 27-16 win. But equally, it was close towards the end, wasn't it? They got that last minute try. They got a drop goal with a couple of minutes to go, and it was 22-16 with not too long left. Warrington beat us in possession, 55 to 45%. They had a better completion rate at 86 versus 84 that we had. We only had one incomplete set in the second half, so that was an excellent second stanza from Trinity. In terms of average set meters, Warrington had 36 meters per set. We had 32. Post contact meters overall, Warrington had 481. We had 435. Line breaks, Warrington had 4. We had 2. And we had more errors. We had 9 errors compared to Warrington's 6, and we had more missed tackles, 29 against Warrington's 23. So initially, there, Dad, even if you didn't know the score, if you were locked in a dark room for 2 hours and you saw those stats, you'd probably imagine Warrington is beating us there by a try or two. So I think the stats probably speak volumes. That's probably about right.
Yeah, yes, because the stats sort of went into Warrington's favour. In the first half, if I was a Warrington fan, I would have been slightly disappointed because after half an hour, maybe 33, 34 minutes, they were still winning 2-0. They'd had so much ball. We defended really well. We defended really well, but we missed, it seemed odd, we still missed 23 tackles in that first half. But our goal line defence, I thought was outstanding. We really did sort of knuckle down and stop Warrington playing. Whether they were in second gear, I'm not sure. But yeah, only 2-0 in that first half an hour when they had so much ball, so much possession, so much attacking advantage. So we did all right. It was just a shame, wasn't it? You know, it's like we dropped off in the last 5 minutes of the first half and the last 5 minutes of the second half, and they scored 15 points in that time. You know, they went from 2-0 to 14-0 in the space of 2 or 3 minutes just before half time. Max kicked his goal, and it was still 22-16 with 8 minutes to go. And then they got another try with the corner and the drop goal. So that's where the score sort of blossomed to 27-16. We were in with a shout for the first half an hour of the first half. And I know it doesn't count anything, but we actually won the second half 14-12. On the whole, we did all right. It's just that concentration into same old thing, cut out the errors, cut out the missed tackles. And the missed tackles were more as the sort of middles started getting tired, Danny Walker started finding the gaps in the middle. But bang on face to face, I just thought I was watching Jazz yesterday. His stats only came up as 25 tackles, which surprised me. But there were times he was first man, in the first tackle, the third tackle, the fifth tackle. He was after doing a lot of work, as in with the forwards. Van Gaal, his stats. You've just talked about our 3-2-1. Van Gaal did 52 tackles and he did a good 80 minutes. So he was up there with the top three. With Truman and Sinfield, it could have been either as man of the match, but his stats look good to Sinfield. And I've done a lot of tackling. But yeah, on the whole, Warrington came out on top because their statistics were probably a little bit better than ours.
Yeah, you're right there. Van Gaal could have easy on another day on another mindset. We could have easily picked Van Gaal as well. Looking at his stats, we always try and we get a lot of pasting actually for these Ken rolling points to say that it's just a bit of fun between us two, but we try not to take everything to heart. It's just a bit of fun. People can make their own lists if they want to, but I think we always try and base it on. We try and create these 3-2-1s immediately after full time, just based on what we've seen with our own eyes. A couple of times we've looked at the stats and thought, oh, we've got that wrong, or oh, we could have included this player. But it is literally just a bit of fun. So I almost don't want to apologise because it is just a bit of fun between a father and son. But I don't want anyone to think that we've got our favourite players or we don't have favourite players because it's just what we see sometimes and it's how it goes. But yeah, Van Gaal had a great performance yesterday, and we'll talk about that. I think it was disappointing, wasn't it? Because it was probably something that was weighing on a lot of Trinity fans' minds going into this game. We haven't started 2026 how we wanted to. And Warrington obviously only had that one match, even though it was against St Helens and they were really, really impressive. A lot of the talk before the game was is it positive that they've had a week off? Is it a positive for us? Is it a positive for Warrington? Do they want that week off? And obviously they didn't have a decision to make there really. I think Warrington ultimately showed a lot more patience in the tougher parts of this game, and I think having players like Sneed and Williams really helped them in comparison to us. I thought at points we looked a little bit panicky. I thought we looked very panicky against Huddersfield. 17 offloads. I don't know if that was part of the game plan, but I felt like a lot of offloads last week came from the fact that we were trying to panic and we were trying to get over the line. You compare that to this week, we only had 4 offloads. Not like offloads always equals panic, but I think in certain parts of the game this week, we just seemed a little bit more panicked than Warrington did. Players like Mark Sneed, who've got such a good kicking game, he kicked us to death again. Those 2 kicks to Ollie Pratt's side. That initially watching the game, I thought Pratt was slightly out of position, but I don't think he was. I don't know, and we know Pratt's not 6'4". He's not going to be an Xavier Coates or a Daniel Tupou towering above getting these kicks, and we've just got to play to that. But he's a real bogey player for us. I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago about Ollie Ashaw, but Mark Sneed always seems to get the better of us, and it's probably the same for a lot of teams. Another drop goal against us. I'm sure you've got the stats somewhere, but I'm sure Sneed's got numerous drop goals against us that have effectively won the game. So I think ultimately, a 27-16 win with those stats is just Warrington showing patience, showing that they've got a bit of tactical nous over us, and ultimately do get in the rub of the green as well. So equally, I do think this was our best performance of 2026. I know that sounds daft. We put 80 over Swinton. We've beaten Huddersfield and we lost to Toulouse. And this is obviously our biggest margin of loss as well. We only lost by 2 points to Toulouse. I think we looked more stable in our defensive line. Our overall stats were better than they were against Toulouse and Huddersfield with our error count and our missed tackles and our completion rates as well. Our attacking structure in the second half was very much Wakefield Trinity of 2025 as well. First half still seemed a bit lacking. I still felt as though we were missing something in the first half. But if we played like we did yesterday against Huddersfield, we'd have put 30, 40 points on them, and we'd have probably beaten Toulouse too, which I know means nothing now, but I think it's definitely a positive for our overall performance looking a bit brighter. That first 40-minute performance from us was it just seemed a lot slow and a lot quite fragmented, and it just wasn't. It was quite as clear as mud, wasn't it? Really, it was difficult trying to watch it. I thought Warrington were the better team by a lot in the first half, but like you said already, 78% completion in that first half and 44% possession too. So we struggled to get the ball, and then when we did have the ball, we were dropping it in the first tackle. I think Caius knocked on his first run, Mamikin knocked on at one point as well. But it's just difficult. I'm glad that we woke up a little bit in the second half. What Warrington this year, especially these rule changes around the ruck are suiting teams like Wigan and Warrington and Leeds. You've seen Leeds put a massive score on Hull KR just because of how quick the rucks are and a few other bits as well. But Warrington are a team that even though with players when they've got players like Matty Ashton and Thewlis on the wing when Ashton's back, they've got some great width and great speed on the outside but they do like to play very narrow to Warrington, and they've got a great running game from their spine. Everyone talks about Kai Taylor at the minute. I watched the BBC coverage. It's all I could speak about, actually. I've never seen so much hype around one performance, and I think he's an excellent player, but it shows how publicised this guy's been. But I think the runners of the ball, the best runners of the ball last night were George Williams and Danny Walker. The meters that they made. George Williams made 19 carries last night. That's more than most forwards on the field. Kai Taylor made 22 carries of the ball, and Danny Walker ran 8 times, which is probably a bit standard for him. But when you compare it to a team like us, who aren't really a team that's going to scoot a lot, and we don't like to run a lot from nine, it was just killing us really. And then Mark Sneed is just that little puppet master at the back. The BBC coverage were joking a lot, saying he never gets tackled, he doesn't like to get muddy. But he don't need to. His kicking game is that good that everyone else will make the meters for him. He can sit back, he can kick teams to death, good kick chase and pin them down. And he did it to us a lot. He turned Pratty and Myers around quite a bit. And again, with these quick rucks now and the six agains, that if you're gonna be a team that's gonna have tired markers and A defenders and B defenders that aren't going to be in position a lot, Danny Walker is going to kill you all day. Kai Taylor is everyone's going to talk about his meters and his backfield play, but his vision at spotting tired defenders as a guy that isn't even being a first receiver is so impressive. So even if you are watching him yesterday, Danny Walker's obviously the guy who's going to control the ruck, and he's going to be the one that looks for these tired markers. But Kai Taylor is just so quick, like a James Tedesco. We've mentioned it before. He does it well in the NRL. He's so quick in the middle that he can spot a gap before Danny Walker's even set off. So when Danny Walker's setting off, and it's quickly a 2-on-1 with a tired marker, which it happened at one point with Isaiah Vanganar, who was just slightly out of position and probably just a bit tired. Within a millisecond, Vanganar had got into a position, but suddenly it was a 2-on-1, and that's how Kai Taylor made these meters. He did exactly the same against St Helens, and they were very good at it last night. Our game ultimately isn't that, and I do wonder the more the season goes on, we can't suddenly change our tactics because we need you need some time to do that. But the faster rucks, I initially thought that might suit us, and I'm not saying after 3 games it's not going to suit us and we're in trouble. But Daryl Powell likes to play his nines differently to how other teams play their nines. Daryl Powell doesn't like people to scoot too much. He likes them to control the ruck, to centralise the play, to tie in the markers, and then to pass out wide to Jowett, who can create the overlap really well, and Truey, who is very much that dictator, and Mason Lino, who plays that quote-unquote eyes up rugby league. He can run Lino, but he's not exactly going to run like a George Williams. Sinfield is that guy at the back who links in very well too. So it was just very difficult for us. And I do watch us with these six agains. And I know you've mentioned it as well. You've been impressed by Wigan and Warrington, how they're playing like it. I do wonder if Powell's going to start giving a bit more onus to Harvey Smith, because Harvey Smith is our guy who can do that. I think Smoothie can do that, but Smith is very much the one who can play a little bit like Danny Walker. If he can spot a gap and if he can spot a tired marker, and what Jowett is really good at is following up play. That's how we got so many tries over the past couple of years, is being that Danny Maguire type follow up play in the middle. I do wonder if we're going to start to maybe switch to that a little bit. So it's interesting, but Warrington were brilliant at that, and they killed Saints, and they killed us a little bit last night as well. We ended up making 57 more tackles than Warrington as well, which again is what's that, 5 or 6 more sets. Our back three ran for 94 less run meters than their back three. Our centres made 102 meters less. Our halves made 103 meters less compared to their halves. Our props 52 meters less. And our interchange was around the same. They made 4 more meters than us from the interchange. But our prominence really was our back rowers. And again, it's something we pointed out last week with Vanganar and Nicotimo, both playing 80 minutes against Huddersfield and both played 80 minutes last night. They made 63 more meters as a collective than their back rowers, Warrington's back rowers. And it's where we were trying to hit again. It didn't work as well as last week, I think, because Warrington are just a better, stronger team out back. But it is working really well. Van Ganar and Nicotemo. Staunton seems to be on the periphery now. I'm not sure. Powell's lost a little bit of confidence in him, but Nicotemo and Van Ganar are very good at that. And it's working well. And I think it was a bit of a game plan for Nicotemo to target Williams a little bit. I won't say it didn't work, but Williams is quite a strong defender, and I think he actually managed Nicotemo quite well. But you look at the running meters, Van Ganar was the only forward on the pitch, not just from us, but from Warrington, who made 100 or more meters. He actually made 100 meters bang on. And Nicotemo went far behind with 95 running meters as well. They both made 11 runs respectively, which is pretty good work rate for the amount of tackles they had to do. Van Ganar made 52 tackles, incredibly, and tackled at 93% tackle efficiency. And Seth Nicotemo made 14 tackles at 100% tackle efficiency. We're actually going to talk about that in a minute on that right on the left hand side. But Dad, yeah, just breaking it down a bit there, how Warrington like to target the middle. They play very narrow. We like to play very wide. I do wonder if the game is benefiting those who's going to narrow the ruck and work off the tired markers.
Yeah, and initially I thought we caught quite well with it. You know, it's cut out those errors we've talked about. As I say, for the first 33 minutes, we caught quite well with Warrington coming down the middle. And then their intensity went up when they brought the subs on. That Toff Sipley, Joe Philbin, and Kelepi Tanganoa. After about half 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and that's when they sort of scored. And Sipley went through the middle. That was when that try, I'm still not convinced. I watched it back on television this morning, and it was a real 50-50 thing. The ball did hit the floor, but did he bobble it? We'll never know. And the newspaper said he did. So that was the intensity went up. Sipley's a big man. Philbin really sort of put some pace into this. And Tanganoa is Tanganoa, as we know. So that's where their stats sort of went up a little bit with yardage and the meters gained. And I wouldn't say I didn't, because obviously Staunton came on, Pitsy replaced Jazz. I still think Jazz has so much more to offer. Jazz did 45 minutes yesterday, 25 tackles. I wish we could see him a bit longer, because I was so impressed with him yesterday. And it's that age old argument: where do you fit Jazz and Pitsy in the same team? It's on few arguments on social media this morning. They're both super players, aren't they? And it's just like, obviously with Smoothie, he picked up a HIA yesterday, so he's going to be missing Hull on Friday. So does Jazz go hooker and we keep Harvey where he is? Possibly, and that's where you fit them both in. But yeah, there was just and Caius, when he came off the bench, he sort of raised the intensity, dropped the ball, didn't he, on the tackle. But yeah, that's how Warrington sort of with their stats and their intensity sort of hit home late in both halves.
What did you think of Caius's return? Obviously, first game back. Well, I mean, he did play against Swinton, didn't he? But first Super League game of the year, and it's great to have him back.
It's what we need, isn't it? We need some pace in our pack. I'm not saying they're slow. Our pack at the moment is workmanlike. You know, McMeekin, he's solid. Caleb Hamlin-Uele, he's solid. Seth and Van Ganar out wide, they've got some good pace. But it's that pace in the middle that Caius brought last season. And in his first hit up, he didn't have splatter him. Yeah, unfortunately, then he bobbled to play the ball. But yeah, you sort of text me at the end as though Caius could easily get into our top three, but it just a couple of errors came in. But that's what we need. They did 38 minutes, and it's just that chaotic chaos all over everywhere. Running style he's got and bouncing off. You know, he hits the first man, does a 180-degree swivel, hits another one, and he's off. So yeah, he made 76 yards in 38 minutes yesterday. I know you mentioned Van Ganar did 180, so he's 76 meters in 38 minutes. That's from going. So yeah, but he's one of our favourites, isn't he? Not that we have favourites, we love them all, but big crowd favourite is Caius.
Yeah, so what went well yesterday? We've tried to break down a few bits of what went well, what we could improve on. I thought what initially went well, we're just looking at the stats. Our defense on that left edge was absolutely exemplary. So our left edge is Jaden Myers, or yesterday was Jaden Myers, Jake Truman, Corey Hall, Seth Nicotemo. Myers, Truman, and Nicotemo, the three of the four, made 100% tackle efficiency. So they didn't miss a single tackle between them. Jaden Myers made six and didn't miss any. Jake Truman made nine. Seth Nicotemo made 14. Corey Hall in the middle of all that made 13 and only missed one. So out of all four blokes on that left edge, we only missed one tackle all game. 42 tackles overall, 43 attempts. So we only missed one. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. as I said, that's seriously impressive, and especially for a resilient team like Warrington. Warrington, especially this year, they seem like they're not going to be a team that's going to slow down. They're going to keep firing at you. They're not going to specifically target certain parts of the field. They're just going to go wherever they want. Especially players like Tyler Ray, Thewlis, and Ashton when they come back. They are just loose cannons, those boys. So, but equally, it's funny. Before I was, I dived into the stats before this podcast, when I was watching the game, I initially thought the other side was equally, if not more impressive, because they look really strong when we've got Pratt, Scott, Sinfield, and Vanganar. Not many were getting through them, and I know it was Sneed essentially who did those two chip kicks onto the wing that caught Pratt out, and I don't know if anybody could have dealt with those because he's so good with the boot, and he was actually I don't know if you've seen, I don't know if you watched the Sky coverage or the BBC coverage, Dad, but Sneed was actually interviewed after the BBC coverage with Tanya Arnold, and he essentially said those kicks are a bit of a cheat code because the way that he positions himself with how narrow he makes that angle. All he has to do is pause for a second, and Ollie Pratt is in no man's land. He can either pause and adjust his stance to look like he's going to do a grubber, so Pratt will either come on the inside, and then if Pratt does that, is that quick enough that he can do a chip onto the outside? Pratt's already too far, and then was it Josh Smith, I think, who was his winger, who catches the ball, rotates in, passes it back inside, and scores. Or he can do the other thing where he aims to kick out wide. Pratt covers the wing. He comes on the inside, either passes or does a short kick, and they score anyway. So Sneed basically said it was almost a bit unfair that he's got that in his toolbox, but equally, that's how good he is, and that's what Warrington have in their arsenal. So I didn't really feel for Pratt, and I've not looked online. We've made a point really of not looking too much at what other people are saying. It wouldn't surprise me if people are picking on Pratt there, but I don't look at Pratt and think that he's made too much of a mistake there. But Pratt, Scott, and Sinfield, especially Vanganar covering on the inside, was absolutely exceptional. Scott is always quite a good defender for me. He's always stood out for me. He's such a big body, and he very rarely misses his one-on-ones, which is what you want from a centre. Jack Sinfield is absolutely excellent in defence, and it's something that I can't say I saw loads of him at Leeds, but it's something that stood out for me without the ball. I think he's brilliant with the ball, but he doesn't half get some targeting as well. I think Huddersfield tried to target him last week. This week, Warrington definitely targeted that side. We spoke about the other side on the left edge. Myers 6, Truman 9, Nicotimo 14, and Hall 13. They made 42 tackles collectively. How many tackles do you think the opposite side, Vanganar, Sinfield, Pratt, and Scott made in comparison? So 42 tackles on our left side. What do you think the right side was?
Well, I'm looking at the stats. Obviously, Van Gaal did 52.
Yeah. So,
Um,
so obviously Vanganar made more tackles on the entire left side as well.
yeah.
Overall, that side made 103 tackles. So again, it's not saying that one side worked harder than the other, but it's just interesting to see which way Warrington were targeting. So, I mean, in no way would I ever take anything away from that left side because it's still a 100% tackle efficiency for the majority, and they worked very hard. But you could just see how much extra work the other side had to do. Van Gaal made 52 tackles, Cam Scott 10, Ollie Pratt 8, Jack Sinfield made 33 tackles. 33 tackles. That's the numbers that you'd be expecting your middles to make. And again, it's just proof. And he didn't miss many. I think he missed 3 or 4, which again, you're not too fussed with your halfback missing tackles because it's not there to make tackles. So again, if it's an example of how teams are going to look at us and they're going to think, oh, I'm going to target that side because Sinfield's a smaller body, he's a new player, he's a younger lad, but Sinfield is, he can easily run off that name, and we've tried to not mention Kevin too much because same with Isaiah. We try not to mention Joe too much because they are their own players. But he can only run off that name for so long. I think yesterday the Huddersfield game was a great start. Yesterday I thought it was absolutely excellent in field. So yeah, the tackling overall from our edges was one thing I was really really impressed with, and our line defense in general. I think 2025 was the year that we really proved that we had the urgency, and we spoke about resilience being a big talking point of 25 under Powell. It was disappointing with Toulouse and the Huddersfield where we just looked a little bit softer in defence. And there was only really one example of that in this game. I think the Sipley try was disappointing, but I think it was just that Warrington had been hammering our line for so long, something had to probably break at one point. And I'm still, like you said, I'm still not entirely sure that was a try. I'm not sure how, because the referee gave it as a no try, to be able to turn it from a no try into a try. I'm not sure the evidence was there. to give it as a try, really. You could see the ball touch the floor in fairness, but I just don't know if it was bobbled or if it was whatever. But it is what it is. I'm sure we'll get something in return in a couple of weeks' time or whatever. And again, yeah, in defence, when Kai Taylor-Ray made that break up through the middle, Cameron Scott and Jaden Myers were excellent. Myers eventually made the tackle on Williams, and Scott closed him down as well. And Max Jowett did really well to hold his fullback line. It's very easy to dive in early in those takes, and it just showed his experience there from Max to really close it down well. Because Warrington, for all the tries and the efforts that they made against St Helens, they didn't make any of those tries against us. They had a Toa Sipley dart through the middle when it looked like that we switched off a little bit. They had the two kicks from Sneed and the Hapawati try where they did break through us a little bit. But I think compared to Saints, I think we actually had a better defensive display than St Helens did. And our best defensive display this year, which sounds daft because we've conceded 20 odd points, but compared to the two games, I think if we carry on like this, we'll do a lot better.
Absolutely, yeah, and I just I want to mention our tries because we scored three tries in the second half, and I thought they were absolute beauties. The first one, Max was limping. It looks as though he got a kick on his shin or ankle. He was holding his shin or showing the physio his shin, and I thought, oh, he's done here, and suddenly the ball went out. Truman gave him that ball, and he shot like a bullet for that corner. And even when he was going, I thought he's going to get smashed here into Rose Head, and he didn't. He got the ball down. He did go roll in. But I thought that was a beauty. I thought the finishing from Max was absolutely first class. And then the second one where Jaden Myers scored, it was a Sydney Harbour bridge pass from Truman, and that was a beauty as well. You know, the whole setup. It was Sinfield to Truman, Truman long ball, missed out two men, Myers in the centre, Myers on the wing. He scored. I thought the third one was absolutely exceptional because it came from a Warrington error in front of us. Jaden Myers got the ball and he just seemed to lack a bit of pace. He couldn't seem to push Sneed off. And then but Sinfield saw something and he was first man or second man. He saw the gap on the Warrington left edge, our right, and kicked for Ollie Pratt on the second tackle. You know, and a few around us were saying, "What the hell are you doing?" But he saw something, and Pratty's pace got that, and he got the touchdown. So I thought our tries were exceptional, and the halfbacks were involved in all three. Truman got two assists, Sinfield got one assist, but either or, Sinfield touched the ball in all three tries. I do believe in all those efforts.
Yeah, it's
And I
interesting.
also think there was a bit of a game breaker right at the end where it was 22-16 and there was another ball going out. Myers got it and then he just got smashed into touch. Taylor-Ray, that was to me that was a game breaker. 5 minutes from the end, and Jaden Myers did end up in Rose Head on a good tackle. And most wingers could have scored that. I'm not saying he didn't because of any other weakness, but it was just the exceptional defence from Warrington that kept us out.
Yeah, it was Williams and Tyler Ray. That was
Yeah.
brilliant from them. They timed it really well
Mm.
too, and no high tackles, no shoulder charge or anything. They're just a good clean hit into touch. But yeah, it shows, doesn't it? I think our back row edges again in attack were really strong, like we said before. Vanganar and Nicotimo. I think that's where our benefit comes from when we're trying to centralise that play, like we mentioned a couple of weeks ago on the fans forum. Smooth it or Smith, whoever it is, they're really good at tying up those markers. So if you can not only tie up the markers, the two markers at the play the ball, if you can bring in an A defender or a B defender as well, tie up those markers, get it out the back to Truman or Sinfield. Because what we do normally, if Mike McMeekin's there as a first receiver, he can tie up an A or B defender. So initially, we're almost dragging four defenders out of the defensive line there. He can pass it out the back to maybe a Max or a Truman or a Sinfield, and then that is what will create the overlap for Vanganar or Nicotimo going through the gap, or create it for Smith, Scott or Hall, and that's what we did both times for those tries. But the one thing that worked really well for both of those tries, I actually went back and watched it. Obviously, Truman asked initially Sinfield or if it's going to be Sinfield or Lino, those passes to Truman have to be bang on and the distribution has to be perfect. Both of them yesterday were brilliant for Sinfield. He timed the pass really well, and his pass selection and his decision making was excellent. Truman's Harbour Bridge pass for both of them were bang on. Myers and Pratt didn't have to do it. Sorry, Jowett and Myers didn't have to do a thing really. It just fell straight into the perfect breadbasket pass, and then they had to work to get over the line. But it comes from the initial play of the ball. Dad, it was the same player who got a quick play of the ball. He got on his front. He got a quick play of the ball for Smith to get out and pass the ball to Truman. Do you know the same player who did those two same quick play of the balls?
I don't know. Go on.
Caius, it was far
Oh
Tilly.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's what he offers to us. So if he can not only tie in three or four defenders at the play of the ball, he's then obviously getting up quick. So they've got a man outside of their defensive line. They're going to have to drag in someone else. If we can spot that, which Truman and Sinfield do really well, and we get it out to the winger perfectly, and that's what people like Jazz and Caius can do for us as well. So that was really, really impressive. And I think for those type of tries, what can go unnoticed is the decoy runners as well. Whether it's Scott, Hall, Vanganar, or Nicotimo, they're the ones that are dragging in the extra defender for to make space and width for Jowett or Myers or Pratt or whoever it is on the outside to go in. You've really got to put some intent on those runs and really time it well so that you don't end up getting a shepherding penalty. And I thought those boys did that really well, and that's what we did again really well last year. So we're just getting into the rhythm of that too. So yeah, I agree with that, Dad. The last part why we ended up really giving Truman the three Ken Rolling points, his assist making was unbelievable. But I thought his kicking game was excellent as well. Again, he shared the duties with Sinfield. But I think one thing, if you're going to have a fullback, we've faced three really good fullbacks so far this year. Ollie Ashall-Bott, George Flanagan Jr., and Kai Taylor-Ray. And one thing there, all three of those are really good at is the kick returns and coming out of backfield. I think one way to kind of try and neutralize that is either you're very rarely going to kick into space for those boys anymore because they're so fit and they're so agile and the vision is so good. They'll usually hoover up that spot quite quickly. What you either want to do, depending on your field position, you either want to get a really high, accurate kick in the air for them, so that obviously the higher the kick, the more time you've got to get your good kick chasing, and the less time they've got when they've got the ball. Or you want to do a kick that's going to make them turn round, but you've got to time those kicks really well, because if you kick it out on the full, you concede a seven tackle set. What we did really well, or Truman did really well, and Sinfield did occasionally, was those long, high, lingering kicks. There was a couple of times where Thewlis and Taylor Ray got those high balls and we were on them quickly. There was actually one or two points where Jowett almost got the ball himself. He was almost trying to do a bit of a Josh Rourke follow through where he just missed it. But I thought they were really good where we helped isolate them a bit. And I thought that's why I say that. Taylor has still managed to make 200 plus meters somehow. But you didn't see him making those backfield breaks as he was doing as much against St. Helens. And I thought our kicking game was really good from that respect, Dad. And good coaching from Powell, because if you can isolate those fullback and wingers with the high lingering kicks in a good, accurate position, and if our kick chase is good, which it was, that's why he was a bit more quiet coming out of backfield.
Yeah, now having watched it back on television, I went to the game and watching it from behind the post is totally different than coming home and watching the follow up on BBC. And when I was at the game, I'm thinking, oh, we ain't got a right good kicking game today. It's going straight down the winger's throat or go straight down the fullback's throat. But when I watched it back, I'm thinking, yeah, we don't want to be giving him too much room. So the fact that it did go straight down his throat, by the time he got it, our cover was on him. So he didn't really. Yes, he did get 212 meters yesterday, but he could have got a lot more if our chase hadn't been that good.
Yeah, and I think you hear it a lot in the crowd, don't you? I think it's a very old school thing of, oh, you need to kick for space, you need to kick away from the wingers and fullback. These days, it's so hard. You can't, because the wingers drop back obviously anyway, but the fullbacks are so fit now that they cover so much space anyway. So it's very rare that you're going to find any space back there because they're so good at doing it. It's not like it was maybe, I don't know, 70s and 80s when the game wasn't as quick. They weren't full-time professionals. The mud was probably more prominent because they were playing in different seasons. The balls were heavier as well, so that you couldn't kick them as far or as high. It's very rare now you're going to kick for space, so you almost need to work that to your advantage. Can you kick for height? Can you kick for length? But again, it takes a really good kicker to not kick it too high that it's going to go into a spot that it's going to bounce out. You don't want to kick it too long that we concede a seven tackle set. Mason Lino's really good at that as well. So not only got three good kicking halfbacks, but three smart halfbacks as well. So really impressed with that. And lastly from me, just huge minutes from Harvey. Again, he probably wasn't expected to play nearly 50 minutes this time round. He's playing a little bit less this year by the looks of things. But again, we mentioned against Toulouse and against Huddersfield, he didn't miss a single tackle. He only missed one tackle in this game. To say he played almost 50 minutes in the middle. Still a smaller body and he's still young. I know he's obviously another year older now. We said he's young for the past 4 years. He's obviously in his early 20s now. But comparing him to even a Danny Walker who's got a couple of good years in him is a very finely tuned Super League hooker now, isn't he, Dad? And again, the BBC coverage were picking up on him quite a lot. I thought his pass selection was good. He had very good distribution because I think sometimes as good as Harvey is and as good vision and eyes of rugby league player he is, his distribution isn't as good sometimes, and we can be a little bit slower coming out of dummy half. But I actually felt obviously our second half was a lot better than our first, and Harvey played that entire second half. So I think our when you dial it all the way back, if someone like Caius or Jazz can get a quick play of the ball, Harvey or Tyson's distribution and pass selection has to be good. Whoever the first receiver is, say it's Mike McMeekin, he has to tie in the B defenders to bring out Truman out the back, Jowett then, and then we give it to the winger. That's our game plan. And if all that starts well with Harvey, as it did yesterday, then we're winning.
Yeah, exactly. And just going back to the Danny Walker you mentioned, he did 80 minutes yesterday. So I don't think they had a hooker on the bench. Maybe Geordie's there as backup, but 80 minutes and his intensity was constant throughout those 80 minutes. Yes, and it did, didn't it? We had a better second half with Harvey coming off with his pace and nippiness. And I did notice that myself. When you look at Tyson Smooth, it is very smooth, pardon the pun, where his distribution straight off the floor, whereas Harvey's a bit staccato, a bit sort of picks it up, stutters, and then passes. No, it's only a second, but it's a second in rugby league world these days is massive.
One final thing I just want to mention about Sinfield, I don't know if you feel the same. I feel he's very calm. I never feel like he's panicked. I think the positive and the negative with Lino sometimes is that he can be so good off the cuff, that he's sometimes so off the cuff that he ends up in a bit of a channel and a cul-de-sac and he blocks himself off. Whenever, and I know he's only played 2 games, I'm not saying that Sinfield is the next best thing. But whenever I've seen Jack Sinfield play for us, he just seems very calm and he's very intuitive without being overwhelmed. And I think that's probably being part of the lead system. I think that is good, and that's obviously something we want to do at the Wakefield Trinity Academy. But again, I don't want to start picking on his dad too much. But his dad was exactly the same. So again, it comes through a lot, doesn't it? And I think Truman plays better when he has a calmer head alongside him. Just wanted to say that as well. Sinfield seems like a very calm, pragmatic player.
He does, and some of the decisions he's made, that going back to what I mentioned with Ollie Pratt's try, that calmness in the middle, he reads a game well. He saw that try coming when Jade Myers was playing the ball on the left, and he was ready. He was calling for it. He'd got it. He'd got it sussed. There was no panic. There was no fuss. Lovely kick, outpaced the Warrington backline, and Pratty scored in the corner. So yeah, I'll back you up on that one.
Then just things that we've pointed out um, that we want to see just a bit differently going into different the other weeks coming up. Too many offside penalties again, really, and it's easy to blame the ref, and people will blame the ref, and we don't like doing that. But because I was watching the game on TV, every offside penalty we got, we were offside. It's as simple as that, really. Offside penalties are going to come. The quicker play the balls, it's harder to get back the 10 for anybody. I mean, I have only ever played, I've said a few times, university and amateur rugby league. Getting back to the 10 every single play is really hard. These guys are professionals and obviously a lot better than anyone who plays at amateur or university level, even though that is a good level. But sometimes you're just going to get caught, and it is just what it is. But I think at the points when it really costing is obviously Warrington are a team who's going to pick up these 2 points whenever they need to with Mark Sneed. Those don't worry me too much. We just need to be careful doing them. And obviously, again, with these new rules and the new ruck speeds, the easy yards like that are going to be quite easy to come by if we're not too careful. The ones that we need to avoid is the one where Tyson Smooth in the first half did a late shot on, was it Williams? I think he came in late and he hit Williams and we got done for that. And I think that's when they went 2-0 up initially. There was a point in the second half where McMeekin had, the commentators called it a lazy arm. I'm not sure it was a lazy arm. It was just a bit ill-timed. And obviously he's 6'10", he's Mike McMeekin, so he's always going to be a bit higher and taller than everyone else. And I think the errors in territorial positions that if we can, when again, I'm not picking out Fatatilli or McMeekin because they've been absolutely exemplary for us. But when they coughed up possession in the centre of the field on both those occasions, those boys know that they didn't want to do that. They'd rather not do that. It's just part of the game. But it's just too easy territory for Warrington, especially a team like that. Knock-ons are always going to happen and errors are part of the game. But it can be frustrating sometimes, especially when there's no pressure on it as well. So yeah, just I'll bounce that back to you, Dad. Just those kind of offside penalties and easy errors that we're giving away sometimes. But again, compared to the first 2 weeks, I think we've cleaned up that a lot better.
It'll come again, won't it, as the season progresses? You know, these offside penalties, it's the game's suddenly got quicker over the last month than what we've seen before. So you've got to be quick off your line, and every now and again we're going to get caught. So we only got caught twice. How many tackles did Warrington have? 200 353 tackles they had. So the fact that we were only offside twice, it's not too bad. They got caught offside as well. They got pinged. That Tyson Smoothie late shot, I thought that was a bit weak from he couldn't really pull himself out. Really, you're talking milliseconds. You know, he couldn't really move. He ran into him and he got done for a late tackle there. So I didn't really agree with that one. But there you go. It's that's life, isn't it?
And last thing I just wanted to ask you about was again we spoke about the props. All the CEOs out again. Fatatelli pulled up obviously before the season started, and Rodwell's coming back from injury as well. But this week, obviously, Rodwell I think seems to be fit. You can't really be 18th man if you're not fit, and we've gone again with Staunton on the bench. Powell obviously came out in the press conference a few weeks ago and said that he didn't think Staunton played too well against Toulouse, and he was playing him off the bench now. But Staunton came on as a middle as a prop. And he seemed to find it quite difficult again at times. I feel like he got bounced off quite a bit. He made some good meters actually in the time that he had. Let me just find that. But I'm just not entirely sure what the benefit is of when we've got an actual middle, a prop on the field, or on the bench at least in Rodwell. And maybe if he does like Staunton just being on the field in general, maybe we put him on an edge and trial someone else in the middle. But I just feel it's a bit detrimental sometimes to have a back row on the bench that we're going to play in the middle as opposed to Rodwell, who can play in the middle, but we don't play him at all. Staunton made 72 meters in 31 minutes, so he's actually going quite well. And maybe I should retract what I've just said, but um, I'm just not sure sometimes of when we've actually got middles, but we're not playing them and we're going with back rowers because again I said last week Van Ganaar is very much a back rower. I don't see him as a middle, and I feel like I feel that same way about Staunton.
That's the problem you've got with the squad we've got. We've got so many good ones. Who do you leave out? You know, we've tried Van Gaal at prop. We've tried Staunton at prop. It's square pegs in round holes again, isn't it? Of playing different people out of position. We've got Rodwell 18th man. We've got Lalesio playing in the reserves. If it'd be easier on Thursday because obviously we've got no Smoothie, so we're going to pop somebody back in. We're going to bring a prop on. So unless there's no other injuries, you're going to bring Rodwell or Lalesio into the bench on Thursday. And so you will have two props. And then it's that argument with Pitts and Tavanga again. When everybody's fit, who do you leave out? And it's not. I'm glad it's Daryl Powell's problem and not mine because out of that 17 yesterday, you can't leave anybody out. You can't drop anybody because you need McMeekin, you need Hamlin, and if you're going to bring another prop in off the bench, who do you leave out from the rest of them? Difficult one, isn't it?
So mostly positive back shot there, probably the most positive back shot of this season, even though it's our biggest loss and another loss in the column, but relatively impressive there, Dad. And we've got Hull coming up on Thursday. We're going to do a Bellevue breakdown with Mike Butcher, obviously because it's a Super League home game. We won't talk about that too much, but coming into the next few weeks, are you a bit more positive now? Obviously, we've got Hull FC at home on Thursday, Leeds at home in the Cup the week after, then Lee at home, York away. Bit more positive now after this performance.
You've got to be positive, haven't you? It's a strange season so far because there's so many teams just collapsing. It's Hull lost at home to York. Lee conceded 50 at Wigan. Hull KR conceded 50 at Leeds. It's not adding up as everybody thought. So ideally, the way Hull have been playing, we've got to look confident. We'd be confident about Thursday. I know we shouldn't bother about the opposition too much, but the way we're playing, we're improving. Leeds in the cup, who knows? Lee, are they in free fall? It's a long shot to say that, because they're not only lost 54-0 to Wigan, but they've got 5 out injured already, and big players as well. And the fact that we're going to mention this somewhere else, but the fact that our reserves went to Lee yesterday and won 70-0, their reserves aren't great either. So Lee just seem to be in a little bit of free fall at the moment. But yeah, we've got to be confident, haven't we, the way we're playing. I want to just mention one other thing before I sign off. Anybody that knows me and anybody that listens to me knows I love my stats. I'm going to give a shout out to Max. Max is now on 978 points for the club. and that's taken him up to third in the all-time list. Neil Fox is obviously top with 4,488. The great Charlie Pollard from the 20s is second on 1425 points. Max has now gone to third. And in this season, he's gone above Mark Conway and Jamie Rooney. So third out of all, when it comes to points scored for Trinity, Max Jowett is the third greatest of all time in our club.
Brilliant. And you think he's got a good chance of getting second there at some point?
Well, he's got 500 points. Charlie Pollard's on 1425. So Max has got another 400 points to catch. Has he got another 200 goals in him? He certainly scores tries. So who knows? Yeah, possibly. It's a good target for him, isn't it?
Well, he got 500 points in a season a couple of years ago. So in
That's
a
right.
Super League terms, that's probably 2 or 3 years, isn't it? So
Well,
he's
he's
got a
got
good chance.
48 already this season. He's played 4 games. Obviously, he banged over a hatful against Swinton, but he's got 48 points already in 4 games. So, and how many games we've got left? 20 odd. Yeah, we'll monitor that from week to week.
Good stuff. Brilliant. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching to episode 259 of the Wakefield Trinity Heritage podcast. You can find us on podcasting platforms worldwide and on our YouTube channel as well, which is flying at the minute. We've just passed 400 subscribers. I think we're on 405 so far. So if you're watching this and you don't subscribe, give us a subscribe. Next target is going to be 450. Then we'll aim to get close to 500 as well going into the mid-season. But yeah, we're on all social media channels as well for further information and real-time updates. Massive thank you to my co-host. We'll be back in the week, next coming week, for the Bellevue breakdown. We've got an early one, obviously, because we play them at home on Thursday. Mike Butcher is going to be back again to preview that Super League home game against Hull FC. I've been Jamie Robinson, and we will catch you all down the road.